It is said that mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Perhaps slightly more sensible Englishmen leave it till a bit later in the day, and wise dogs probably stay home in the comfort of air-conditioned luxury. It's about 7:30 in the evening and I come for a little walk on the beach here in southern Spain. So we are at Playa de El Mojon, near Isla Plana. We're in fact in between Isla Plana and Puerto de Maderon in Murcia. So I've been to this beach before actually, and I think I've done a video a little bit like what this one's going to be. I'm just going to have a wander along the shore here, mostly avoiding the humans. We're going to the slightly more interesting pebbly end of the beach up there, and we're going to have a look at some rocks and beachcombing stuff. It is the 20th of July. Peak daytime temperature today where I am was about 37 degrees Celsius. It has now cooled down to a relatively moderate 32. It still actually feels really warm and muggy. The humidity is quite high because we're right next to this body of water. This is the Mediterranean. And this bay contains some of the minerals and rocks that have been washed down from the valleys that I've explored in previous videos. So actually once we get down to the bit where the water is wetting it, we should hopefully see some pretty things. I don't think I'm going to be collecting any rocks today. We're just going to have a look at some things by the sea, see if I can figure out what they are. I'm not a geologist, so I take anything I say with a pinch of halite. So let's have a look at some pretty stones. So there's quite a lot of translucent, possibly quartz, it might just be calcite, quite a lot of this sort of stuff. There aren't really any tides to speak of here in the Med, so there isn't much of a strand line or anything. It's just I mean, the water level does fluctuate, probably as much due to winds and currents as by the small amount of tidal movement there is here. But we've got a very rich assortment of rocks. I can see reds and greens, brown, white, sort of marbled stuff. I'm going to have a wander along because there's some bigger rocks at that end. So as we've seen in other beaches, you know, there's a similarity between this and Chesil Beach in that this end of the beach here has got all of the finer sediment. Over there it's bigger rocks. So that's interesting. Oh, by the way, socks and sandals, deal with it. If I get too hot, I might take the socks off and might have a little paddle, but I don't intend to be going in for a swim. And the gravel does actually slope down quite sharply into the sea, so maybe not, eh? I'm going to go around this corner because I think there's another little cove round there with some different things to look at. Trying to not get in anybody's face, really. So all of these rocks are natural. These aren't, I think the larger rocks might have been actually piled up here as a bit of a breakwater, but everything you see here is a natural rock from the formations up in the hills that I've walked and explored many times before. So we've got things like this, which is, I think, a conglomerate. It might be a breccia, but you can see actually it's been broken apart and then infiltrated by a seam of maybe quartz or calcite there, quite apart from the brown matrix, which is broken up and separated the lighter coloured particles in there, lighter coloured chunks in there. I don't know if you're seeing a surface sparkle on that. That's probably just salt. Okay, that one isn't natural. That's a piece of urbanite, concrete. So here we go, this one is natural. I'm just going to put my bag down so that I can perhaps just uncover that and get it out. It's probably a bit too big to move, but a lovely piece of sandstone or something like that with quartz or calcite venation. And again, probably been broken up and infiltrated by that mineral more than once in its history. I don't really expect to find any fossils in here, but we will find interesting things like this. I think this is a piece of schist, and those are little flakes of mica sparkling in the sun there. It's quite pretty, isn't it? So I think schist is something that used to be shale and then is metamorphically transformed. So it's like a slaty material that's heated by magma, and then it transforms it into a... It still has traces of the bedding planes and layers in there, but it transforms it into a different mineral. This, I think, is a granitoid. Not necessarily granite, but something along those lines. That's got a little bit of sheen to it as well, a little bit of chatoyance. I don't know if you can see that. I'm jiggling around all over the place, so you hopefully can. Very dependent on the angle of the sun and the camera. There we go, there's a bit. Can you see that? This is interesting as well. So there's a piece of pumice. There's a few like that actually, because this region has got a history of sedimentary rocks, and then volcanic activity, all sorts of really mixed up geology. And so amongst these rocks we find all sorts of things. We find volcanic stuff like that pumice. I'm pretty sure that is a pumice. In fact, there's a few pieces of it there. They're aerated by some kind of volcanic activity. But we also find sedimentary rocks here. We find metamorphic rocks. Here's a piece of metamorphic, I think. That looks like a piece of marble. It may just be a chunk of calcite, but I think that is a piece of limestone that's been metamorphically transmuted into marble. Could probably carve something with that. That out there, I don't think is a rock. That looks like it might be a piece of an engine or something like that from a wrecked boat. Or maybe it's just the footings, maybe the footings of a post or something like that. So this one is a conglomerate. This looks like a piece of concrete, but it's not. So this is all sorts of different quite rounded pebbles. So probably a riverbed or maybe a seabed that was then infilled by either mud or lava or sediments or ash or something like that, and that's created a matrix around those other things and set them in place. So a bit like a pudding stone, but not a pudding stone. I thought we were looking at a fossil there for a minute, but again it's a piece of schist. So how would you like a piece of slow TV just looking out across the rippling waves here for a few minutes? I don't know if there's people, are there people jumping off the cliffs there? Well, I think they maybe are. Let's have a look and see if somebody's going to be brave enough to go off the top. Okay, so just looking down here at this rock, we've got clearly got bedding planes in that rock. There are a few around here like that. Now, those may not be sedimentary bedding planes. Those might be just successive layers of dust or ash or mud or something laid down by volcanic action rather than sediments in an ocean. So, don't know. It does look a little bit tough for a, you know, a shale or something, just the way it's fractured. Looks like it's a bit harder than a shale or a slate. But again, it could be a metamorphic version of a shale or a slate, so these bedding planes could be. Originally sedimentary. Just looking at this rock here, this is another, I don't know, basalt or granitoid or something like that. Really heavy for its size, and quite small crystals in there, so probably cooled quite quickly. Okay, probably mild trypophobia warning here. I'm just going to pick up a rock with a lot of holes in it. Looks a lot like a crumpet. And again, I'm pretty sure that's aeration that's happened when this came out of a volcano or out of a vent of some sort. Anyway, that holy rock is going away now. Oh, here's a pretty looking stone. With a lovely little gradient of pink and beige. I think it's just another one of these pieces of sandstone, but it's very pleasing. I don't think there's anything precious on these shores. There's a lot of this sort of stuff, which is quartz, or you know, quartz with probably little feldspar crystals in it, something like that. Don't think there's any even semi-precious stuff here like jasper or anything like that, but there are some pretty rocks here. So I think what I might do now is try to head round over there. There's a lot of people there, but I'll try and find a bit of beach where there aren't so many people, so I don't have to invade their privacy. And we'll have a look at some of the bigger rocks that we get at the other end, because I think there's a bit more variety in the colour and mineral properties of the rocks at the other end. So up at this end, and as we walk along with the light behind all of the rocks, we get to enjoy the translucency of them. Lovely little orangey bit of quartz or calcite there. I can never tell. Calcite's softer than quartz. I think most of this is probably quartz. In fact, I think most of what we're looking at here is quartz or quartzite. But yeah, just some pieces of it. Very pretty. I think that would probably tumble to a nice shine. It's a bit small to start with, but I think that could be tumbled and polished. Not going to be doing that though. If I recall correctly, as we round this corner, we should find some bigger stones, but this beach has changed quite a bit since I was last here. There are a lot finer sediments and gravels here than I remember. So I imagine that's just natural turnover. But look at the clarity of the water. I think that's where all the bigger stones are that I'm used to seeing. So I mean, I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of tidal movement or currents or, you know, wind making the sea level here a bit lower last time I visited. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to take the GoPro underwater, have a little swim around these rocks, look at some fish. That may well have to wait for another day. Not this trip either, because I'm hopefully flying home tomorrow. I'll tell you what I will take. I will take a bit of sea glass, since that's not a natural, you know, that is essentially a piece of litter. I'll take that home. That can go in my collection at home. See, another little piece of green sea glass there. quite nicely worn. Again, that one's coming home with me. Oh, and just to round out the colours, a piece of kind of seafoam colour sea glass. Very lovely wear on that one. Look at that. Beautifully rounded and smooth. Nice. Another tiny piece of green. I mean, I would love to find a piece of blue here, but that is so unlikely. So thanks for joining me on this evening walk. Still actually sweltering temperatures at Isla Plana today. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.